Okay, everyone, so now we're back. First, I'd like to thank Gargi and Vijay for that excellent session on AI, which, as we all know, is one of the most compelling and important technologies of this generation. So now we'll session 3. This will be, the session chair is Kautar El-Magrawi, who'll be coming up on the stage here at Yorktown. And Kautar will be leading a very interesting panel with a set of 4 very accomplished women who have volunteered to respond to questions. So I'm sure we'll find this very interesting. And if you have questions, you can put them into the chat. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorraine, for the introduction. A pleasure to be here and to moderate, this interesting panel that touches on a lot of timely issues that women in the field of computing face, and especially with the focus today on the field of services computing. So I want to make sure that we have all our panelists on stage. So first, let me introduce, our distinguished panelists. So we have Francis West, the CEO of Francis West Co., that will be joining us in this discussion. We also have Professor Ji Jin from Peking University, and Professor Jing Fan from the Zhejiang University of Technology. I apologize if I misspelled, the name of the universities. And then, last but not least, we have Huda El-Nimuni, who is a PhD candidate at the University of Durexel, doing her PhD in computer science. Okay, so just wanted to share, what this panel discussion will be about. So what we've done, so let me just show our panel speakers. So today we've chosen to focus on 4 key topics that are really timely and touch, the lives of a lot of women, not just women, women and men. So the first topic that we'll touch on is related to diversity and inclusion. And then leadership and career advancements. And then we're going to talk about women in services computing, and then a very important topic around resiliency in the era of COVID-19. So I would like to turn it over to our panel for quick introductions. Can you bring to the online stage the set of panelists, please? So I can see Huda. Welcome, Huda.
Thank you.
Huda, would you like to start with a quick introduction?
Yeah. Okay, my name is Huda El-Nimuni. I am a PhD candidate at Drexel University College of Computing Informatics. Soon I'll be joining University of Indiana Lodi College as a CI fellow in the fall of 2021.
Thank you, Huda. And we're very honored to have Francis West. Francis, could you please introduce yourself? Francis, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Okay, let's try again. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Francis West, and I'm the founder of Francis West Code, and I'm very proud ex-IBMer. I have a company that focus on strategy of a digital inclusion, which means that what we try to do is to make sure that governments and institutions really understand that a technology can and be an enabler, but it also can be a barrier. So it's very important to have inclusion be built into technology. And I did a lot of my work in IBM research, and it's based on that foundation that I now have my own company.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Francis, for the introduction. Also want to mention that Francis was also a former IBMer, so we're very, very happy to have you back and have you participate with us in this panel. Do we have Ji Jing and Jing Fan? So I think maybe the other panelists are having some technical difficulty joining the online session. So why don't we just keep going forward with our panel, hopefully while waiting for Jing and Ji to join us. So I would like to start with the first topic around diversity and inclusion. And let me start with Francis on the question of how did you make the case for diversity? You obviously run right now a wonderful company that focuses on this topic. So how did you make the case for diversity? And in your opinion, what are the most effective strategies for developing diverse teams?
So the topic of diversity is really hot and heavy, especially in the tech industry. As some of you probably remember, 2015 actually started out with women in tech. You know, if you remember for example, the famous Google walkout. And now, of course, we have situations followed with Me Too movement, and now we have Black Lives Matters. I think as a society, this whole topic is becoming more and more acute, and especially as technologists, this is such an important topic. I think from institution or enterprise or company perspective, this is a topic that has to come from top down. Diversity is not what I call the bottom-up initiative. It really has to come from the very top of the business or institution, where the senior leaders really not just believe, but put in practice what is needed, because they really set the tone and set the expectation. And so from that standpoint, it is absolutely crucial that that any organization has a from all the way from the board of director to C-suite embrace diversity authentically, and then from there, then you can have policy and governance and practices, and also that will lead to, of course, innovation in product or services and so on. So from my standpoint, diversity is a topic that that if you can start from the top, is the only way, frankly, to make it real.
Yeah, thank you, Francis. That's very well said. Definitely, diversity and inclusion should be really in the agenda of every company, and also in the agenda of all the executives. It should be maybe one of their number one priorities to basically help diversify their employees, and then make that really one of their key priorities. I would like to move to Huda, and especially on the question, of course, to make the case for diversity and to get us, to more diverse teams. How do we attract, women to the field of computing? I think that's very key. Of course, for companies to be successful in having diverse teams, there's also there should be a pipeline for having more accomplished women in the field, so that the companies can hire them. So, do you have any any views on how do we from your experience, especially right now that you're also still a student and you have access to a large body of students, so it would be great to hear your opinion on the topic of attracting women to the field. Huda, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. I think thinking of how to attract women to the fields of services computing involves thinking of how we can attract women to STEM and computing in general, because the number of women in computing domain is already limited. So we need to join the efforts of attracting girls to STEM education and computing. Things we can do, for instance, as individuals, we should be careful when we talk to girls and not use language that reinforces stereotypes about who belongs to computing. Buy toys that are appropriate for girls. So instead of gifting a book about a Disney princess, gift a book about Ada Lovelace, for instance. As educational institutions, we can make an introductory course obligatory to all junior women students so they can have a taste of computer science. And as IT companies, in services computing, we can offer adequate benefit packages to women, such as maternity leave, besides equal pay and mentorship. So I think we can also all support the efforts of bridging the gap gender by donating or supporting activities that strive to attract women to computing, such as ECM Women's Celebration of Women in Computing, ECMW Students Chapter, Girl Scouts Tech Programs, etc. So by just joining those efforts, we can guarantee that there are more women in computing in general, and then we could have other strategies for attracting women in services computing.
That's really well said. Just sorry, I have a problem with the audio here. Yeah, that's well said, Huda. And like you mentioned, these things, really touch the entire pipeline, all the way from young girls, all the way, to, professional women. So there should be strategies that try to make this field more accessible, more attractive to, little girls, all the way to, students in colleges and so on. Thank you for sharing these great recommendations. I think we're still having difficulty, unfortunately, for the other panelists to join us, but I have received, some answers from Jink that I'll share, regarding one of the questions that we have on the topic of diversity. So let me just bring, her answers. So the question that was addressed to her was how to attract more women to the field of services in computing. Especially, to make this field also more diverse and inclusive. So what Jing said is, first of all, we can encourage women to participate in the field of services computing by showing them the outstanding female models. Let female students understand that they are also suitable for the work in services computing. Secondly, we can provide opportunities for women to build their self-confidence, such as organizing more women to get involved in different projects and research work, during which they can find their own strengths. Thirdly, we can establish women's own organizations to provide support and guidance for women's growth. China Computer Federation, CCF, has a working women committee which has done a lot of work to help women in computing. So thank you, Jing, for sharing your insights on the topic here. I hope you still can join us live here. And so going on to the other topic around leadership. So leadership is also a very important topic, and being able, to help women get into leadership positions, empower them, and also go up the ladder is also very key. And we would like to hear from our panel here, what are some of the tips and tricks and recommendations that they have from their experience, especially that you have a great set of leaders in our panel today, to, how do we get to where you are, and how do we help women lead also in their fields? So let me start with the first question addressing Francis. What are the qualities of leadership that women should cultivate?
I think one of the leadership traits, so to speak, especially in time like this, when the world is changing so fast, especially in the technology area, is really to dare think differently. Because I think we have gone from a world when everything is very organized, so to speak, in every sense of the word. Even in the old days, for example, when I first started with IBM, 30 some years ago, when we first organizing data, it's in table and column, in a very defined kind of a setting, right? And now everything is very is variable. So I think one of the things especially for women of the future in the technology world, is to really dare to think differently, to think outside of the box, and also trust your own intuition. Since we're in this service computing symposium today, I mean, the service industry has grown so much, and it's really integration of many different fields. And that in itself speaks to a very diverse and non-linear kind of possibilities. So I think women, especially in today's business and also in technology industries, should try to really hone their own instinct about what, for example, is possible and what are the solutions, whether enterprise client or a consumer client might be looking for. So that's one thing that I think will serve as well, is to think holistically and 360 degree. And I think women by nature tend to think very holistically anyway. And so that really lends itself to this emerging, and new kind of a computing paradigm. And then secondly is to learn how to communicate. What I found is that in my own career, and the first actually 2/3 of my career actually was in sales and marketing, and then my last 1/3 of my career was in IBM research, heading up the IBM Human Ability and Accessibility Center, working on digital inclusion. And what I found is that the skill set I gained from in sales and marketing, because in those kind of jobs, you really have to have a strong communication skills. I think that is one thing that we as women can always try to learn and improve and practice upon, because if you cannot articulate your ideas confidently and also in some cases skillfully, because it can be challenging environments when everybody has their own opinions, and it's what I call intellectual sparring kind of environment. One has to have the confidence and also the potential, the practice of being able to hold your own, so to speak, from a communication standpoint. And last but not the least is to be willing to take risk, to change career path, and have trust in your ability, even though it seems to be totally, different and path or different pathway. And I can tell you that in my own career, I'm a career IBMer, so my entire life has been with IBM, 30 some years, and then I jump out to be an entrepreneur. But even within the IBM 30 some years, I switched track from sales and marketing to software to services, and then ended up in research. And every jump is a very different jump, but that really helped to enhance and round off your skill sets. So these three things, which one is to think differently, dare to think differently, and secondly, learn how to communicate effectively, and then third is to take risk.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, Francis, for this well-articulated answer on the topic of leadership. Like you said, daring, to be bold, and then being able to communicate effectively, and also taking risks. These are really very important attributes, part of the leadership. And obviously, in your career, you've culminated a lot of experience. So sharing these tips is really great. We also have an answer from Jinx. I'm just trying to get my laptop to work so I can say her answer. So while this is being worked, let me just move to Huda. on the topic of having an ally. I think many of us need supporters, need allies throughout our career. So Huda, especially right now that you're in the early stages of your career, you're about to graduate and enter the professional world, do you have an ally? And what are also some of the strategies to make sure that you get an ally, you get the right people to support you in your journey?
Yeah, I do have an ally, and that is how I am surviving the full-time PhD program with a baby and a toddler. I actually suffered when I didn't have we didn't have an allies, even when I was childless. So while I think there are many strategies, I learned the hard way that the best strategy of finding an ally is not to wait for that ally to show up and fight for you. So approach people in your environment and get to know them, because nobody can stand for you if they don't know who you are and what are your needs. So you need to open up that conversation doors and make that allyship possible. People don't usually like to meddle in others' businesses, but if they know you and they know your needs, they will know how to best support you. Also, be an ally yourself to others who are less privileged than you. I am sure there are, like, if you are a white woman, then probably there is a woman of color that needs your support. So that will create a good culture of allyship and will help you find more allies that can stand for you.
Okay, great, Huda. Thank you so much for sharing. So let me move to the next topic. I think the other panels are still having difficulty joining the panel, unfortunately, technical difficulty. So I'd like to move to the topic of women in services and start, the first question about, where do you see the next big thing in computing, and how do you see women playing a role in the field of services computing? Francis, would you like to take this question first?
Sure. The future of, in this case, of service computing really maps to what I have been doing and what I am doing. And some of the IBM researchers like Lorraine knows that in the past, Lorraine and I had many discussion, and I really see that from the technology standpoint, we have gone from what I call the system-based, kind of system orientation, where in the old days, you have the mainframe computers, kind of processing lots of data to drive for efficiency or a speed of data processing, right? And now, of course, the computing and power is in the individual hands. It's in consumer. It's a consumerization of a technology. So what that means is that the future growth and future needs of the technology is going to be very personalized. And when it's very personalized, that means that there will be opportunity to really go from what I call the market to the market of one kind of a thinking, which is, we talked about personalized learning, personalized medicine, personalized shopping experience. With artificial intelligence, with big data analytics, everything can drive to supporting that one individual's personal preference. And I think that is actually going to be a huge area of growth. And that's another reason why I'm so, into making sure that as we develop this new kind of paradigm of a personal computing, not personal computer, but personal computing and like an AI for one, for individual, that we actually think about building the data set and also the logic or thinking based on the diversity of people's background. It's not just race and gender, but background, history, cultural, a reference point, and to some degree, and also their abilities, right? I mean, this is actually the foundational work that I've done in IBM research, is to take in the extreme case of people who are aging and people who with disabilities, whether it's vision impairment or hearing impairment, to all the way to cognitive impairment. And latest with the COVID-19 environment, we actually begin to recognize the mental health impairment, right? The social isolation. So I think the technology is going to be crucial in supporting this kind of personal preference or personalization world of the future. And I just think that it is a world that we are entering that we really have to really be mindful to balance the humanity side of the equation against the technology. I do sometimes have concerns that, while we're talking about, for example, data science, data analytic, being absolutely crucial as a foundation to some of this new technology, but where does the humanity, the human emotion or human feelings and human meaning or happiness, where does that come into play? I think those are the area that we really have to really pay attention to and figure out creatively, how do we codify those, what I call the invisibles elements. So that to me is an intriguing and very interesting area that is yet to be, we're just at the beginning of that journey. So personally, I think this service computing kind of future lends itself very nicely, especially to women in tech, because again, these are some of the very foundational needs and also a desire of women in this, to address, the human type of challenges and be able to find solution for it.
Very well articulated, Francis. Thank you so much for this wonderful answer. Especially, I love the human aspect that you're bringing to the table here. As we're looking ahead in the area of future of services computing, striking that right balance and having human in the loop, using also AI and analytics to kind of empower us as humans through the field of services. Really great vision here, and I hope that many companies follow through that vision. Huda, I also would like to hear your view. You're doing research in human-computer interaction, which is also a very human, involved field. It would be really great to see what you think, the future of services computing from your point of view.
Yeah, as a human-computer interaction researcher, I would say HCI is going to be one of the next big things in services computing. HCI is a field of study focusing on the design of computer technologies, and in particular, the interaction between humans and computers. So I think now you can guess why I said HCI. It is very important here, because unless we develop an understanding of users and create intuitive and friendly interactions between computers and humans, our products and services won't work seamlessly and be successful. So we need to do research about our users, understand who they are and their needs, design with those needs in mind, test our products and services with users to make sure that they respond to their needs, and reiterate to improve their design and interaction overall. So while I think there will be many areas that are growing within services computing, I do believe that HCI will be one and an opportunity for women to contribute to.
Can I just add one point? Can I just add to what Huda just said? To me, the HCI area is it really is a perfect area where you integrate, kind of a research thinking innovation, but with practical application, right? I can't think of any other kind of a technological science, computer science field that is so close to be able to influence, for example, productization of either, a physical product or services. So from that standpoint, I think it's extremely exciting because not only you can do research and think outside of the box, so to speak, right? But then you'll be able to apply. And if you don't have that opportunity, and I really think you should look for that kind of opportunity to apply, because this is definitely one of those applied research area that can have huge immediate return impact on the society. And one of the proudest work that I did when I was at IBM was actually taking some of this thinking and working with IBM design. So again, I think it's just one of those areas that is full of exciting opportunities.
Right, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see Professor G, who just joined us. A big welcome, Professor G. Can you hear us?
And one of the
Yes,
proudest work
I
that
can
I did
hear, yeah.
when I was at IBM was
Yes,
actually
can you hear
taking
me?
some of this thinking and working with IBM design.
Yes, we can hear you.
Again, I think it's
Professor
just one of
G,
those areas
would you like to spend a few minutes
is full of
introducing yourself?
exciting opportunities.
Right, exactly. Thank you.
And I see Professor G, who just joined us. I think you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself first? Professor G, who just joined us.
Yes. Good. Sorry, I'm late. And can I share my screen? Yeah.
Oh,
I can
yeah,
share.
sure.
I want to share my screen. Yes, because I'm late and you have answered lots of questions. And I would like to share some points of my points.
Professor G, who just joined us.
Yes. Can you see the screen? Sorry, I'm late.
We still can't see it. So while you're trying to share your screen, Professor G, would like also to share an answer regarding especially the women in services and where do you see the next big thing in services from Professor Jing. So she said, from the field of business process management, I have researched on many enterprises will face process reorganization and business processes will be integrated across different areas and different environments. Artificial intelligence will play a very key important role in process reorganization, and cognition will be used to improve services capabilities. For example, city governance also experience digitalization. Service process is modified so that people can get help and support fast and can get help and support fast. Online service and self-service are used to replace most of the on-site service, so online and offline service can be collaborated. With just process transformation, we suppose that service provided by AI will be 60%, online manual customer service will be 30%, offline service will be 10% in the future. So I think Professor Jink is sharing from her own research studies, what she sees, the future for services and computing, especially that it'll be dominated by AI, and she estimates around 60%. So let me go back to our panel here. And I think, Professor G, you would like to share some thoughts with us?
To share some thinking, yeah. Let me share my screen first.
If you see on the bottom of this, there is a share screen.
Can you see this, the slides? Yeah, that's first time introduce myself. My name is Zhi Ji from Peking University, and my research area is knowledge engineering and also, of course, for working on service computation, service computing. I mean, since 2005, and this is my area. And I would like to. I mean, I have also miss questions, and I want to add it in my ideas about this question: how to attract more women to the field of services in computing. Because I have many female students, and also I would like to encourage them to pursue the career in service computing. I always show them the female models, and yeah, I think there's four, and just there are lots of models, but I like to show the Ada Lovelace, Joan Burtick, Grace Hopper, and also Margaret Hamilton. They are all pioneer in computer programming, and also the pioneer in software engineering. So, and I think the female students want to get encouraged, and we need to transfer the idea of that you can do, and you can be great in this area. That's I think what I can do for the female students. So, and I just want to transfer the idea to them. And yeah, this is my first the idea for the first questions. And also, and I think I have missed the second. The second is about what are some self promotion strategies that you have used to help advance your career. Yes, and from my experience, I think for female, it's very important to choose a suitable field. In this field, you are very interested in this field, and also you have some kind of basis and have some expertise. And also the most important thing, I think you need to choose a friendly team, and the colleagues and you want to work with. Yes, yeah, you. This is I think for female researchers, it's very important to find a friend, colleagues to work with. This is my first strategies. And the second is suggestion is you should be you should be focused, persistent, and stay in sciences, because for female the time is very limited, because you need to have some family responsibility, and also at the same time you need to choose the career development. So the time for us is very very limited. You cannot move from one field to another. You cannot change frequently. We have to focus and the persistence to pursue the topics we are interested in. And the last suggestion to the female research is that for maintaining a safe haven and find the balance. For the safe haven, I mean is family. Family is most important for the female, because you can find, the safe place you want to stay, and you can feel safe when you're back to the home. So and also the family we need to maintain, and also we also need to the career development is also necessary for us, because from the career we get very confidential feeling, and so this and how can balance these things, and that's very important also for female. And the another one strategy for the female is a self-care strategies. And we sometimes need to set a mini goal for myself, and to have some when the mini goal has achieved, you should treat yourself as you treat yourself a little, and so you can get self encouragement. So this is my answer for the second question. I think I can go through I can go through 4 questions. Can I?
Thank you so much, Professor. It's
Okay.
really great
And
insights.
yeah,
Especially,
and also I have
I
another yeah, this is for the challenge. For the challenge in service computing is that means the challenge for us is because the service computing is a changing area. That means the technical in service computing are developing very fast. So that is why we should be focused, persistent, and stay enthusiastic, and also choose to work in the area that you have basis and don't change research direction frequently. That is the challenges we need to focus. And also the last question I want to answer is, what are your thoughts about how this pandemic will change the future of service computing? I think service computing will be much more important in this because more and more services are deployed within the physical world and the human society. That's show the smart home as show. So service design should be human-centric, human value-centric, and to make the service more reliable. And these are all important focus for us to pursue. And for the last slides, I just want to show the physical opening ceremony in Beijing this morning. So I just, yeah, this is what I want to show for all the participants. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Ji, for sharing your point of view. Really great insight. Especially, I think you've concluded it nicely, talking about the pandemic and kind of that. Let us maybe start spending a little bit of time on the impact of the pandemic on us, and also on our field. So let me start, with Francis on the topic of COVID-19 has disrupted, every aspect of our lives, in personal, professional, everywhere, in the world. So in your view, what are some of the tips on increasing your resilience and also especially caring for your mental health? Being confined sometimes, having, to change the way you work, the way you interact, lots of time spent online, which is not really a healthy way of living. Can you share from your personal experience some of how you deal with these challenges in the face of this pandemic?
Well, I probably have one of the most extreme examples to share. I actually took a trip, international trip from Boston to Taipei, Taiwan over the Labor Day weekend because I had a family member who had a medical emergency. So for those of you who don't know, but Taiwan has a very strict quarantine policy. So I actually was quarantined for 2 weeks. It literally was like prison, where the food was delivered to me and contact traced. And then I just came back from Taiwan 5 days ago. So I have personally experienced the COVID isolation in a quarantine environment firsthand. The way that I dealt with it, in the 2 weeks between jet lag, worry about the family members' health, and also the isolation was I started doing yoga online, following a friend of mine who actually teaches yoga, streaming. I've never done yoga in my life. I'm usually not a kind of yoga kind of person. But once I started, I realized it's really actually very calming, because when you are in a world, like physical world, that is out of control, and then mentally, with all the politics and national dispute, between U.S., China, Taiwan, and all that, one can feel very helpless. So that's when the situation, I think, the best defense is actually you go inward and take care of yourself and do some self-caring. And that really helped fortify your ability to deal with what's out there. And then I have to say that Zoom or the technology enabled me to carry out my work while I was in Taiwan. And having work, actually, the only challenge was the day night. So Professor Gina, I understand that, how you have to work at night, but because of 12-hour time zone difference. But having that work and having to work on things that I'm passionate about really helped grounded me, which leads to the next thing, which is I think the COVID-19 is going to be a new phenomenon to stay, and it really helped heighten the need to worry or to think about the mental health of individual, right? Not mental health of other people, but your own mental health. So from that standpoint, I think it is a very, I won't say the silver lining with COVID-19 is to bring out, again, since we're on the topic of surface computing, about the human. For those of you who don't know, I actually wrote a book called Authentic Inclusion Drives Disruptive Innovation. And I talked about, as we strive for innovation, especially in the tech world, one of the things we have to think human first. And with that spirit in mind, you have to take care of yourself because you are the human that's most important. So that's how I deal with this COVID, and then and also just begin to have rhythm to engage nature, taking walks, in the woods and all that. That's what's the first thing I did when I came back to Boston is just walk in the woods. Anyway, so that's my COVID story.
Thank you so much, Francis. Really great story that you have to share here. Definitely, I cannot stress enough the importance of self-care and getting out of, the house, taking walks. That's so important. I personally also have started doing more of that, especially, that we're not used to staying in the house for a long time, taking, all the duties, the personal and then the professional from the same place. That change of environment is important, and yoga is a great tip. I should start trying that myself. I've never done it also.
I can share the link with you that I use.
Yeah, I think I've heard many actually saying really wonderful things about yoga, especially the online yoga. So it's definitely worth trying. Huda, I would like to move to you here. Huda, you just recently got a baby, so congratulations. I can only imagine, all the stress that you must be going through caring for an infant. You also have another little child. You're still, working on your PhD thesis. So how do you balance all of this, and what are some of the challenges that you're facing, especially as you're dealing with this pandemic?
Yeah, well, the biggest challenge is the fact that I couldn't collect data for my dissertation because my dissertation my data needs to be collected in a classroom context. I wanted to study telepresence robots in the classroom, but with COVID-19, there was no way I could use telepresence robots in the classroom and collect data for them and then graduate. And I've spent 3 years working. I proposed 3 years ago, and I spent 3 years working on that topic, but then I couldn't, and I have to graduate within a year. So the only option that I had is to change the topic and work on a new dissertation topic. So that's what happened. It's working well thanks to the allies. So I can't pretend that I strike the perfect balance between family life and work or research, because one cannot control for all the variables, for the intervening variables there. So I work at nighttime. I am a night owl, so I enjoy working that, and I'm very productive at nighttime. But when a kid gets sick, then I cannot work, and then I am behind. So I do my best to manage my time. Family comes first. So when my kids are awake, I can't work, and I don't work. So I don't even try to work when they're awake, because that's very stressful, and that makes you more tired and not productive at all. So I enjoy life with them when they are awake, and when they are asleep, I do my best in order to progress in my work. So that's my best strategy. Prioritize, try to manage my time if I can't get things done because of some intervening superpower, then I just reschedule that for another time and do more like on another occasion. Yeah, I think that's all.
Thank you, Huda. Really impressive how you manage all of that, especially having to change the PhD topic and trying to race, to graduate. So all the best with all of that. You also embody, the true superpowers that women usually have to manage so many different things, juggle so many things. So all the best to you. I would like also to share the view from Professor Jing, who unfortunately could not join us due to technical difficulties. She shared some of the thoughts on how this pandemic will change the future of services computing. So Professor Jing said that the coronavirus pandemic has greatly changed our ways of communication and lifestyle. We are facing many new challenges. At the same time, it is also the first time for us to fully realize the great changes brought by science and technology. People's work and life more rely on the internet. Online education, online services, and online shopping has increased significantly. And this becomes our new normal. For example, online education has become a new way to replace traditional education in the epidemic. In the past, online learning has worked as a complement to in-class learning. However, to this pandemic, online education become really mainstream. And also, she shared on, how this pandemic will change the future of services computing. The pandemic will also bring changes in the development of online services, which will accelerate the process of digitalization, networking, and intellectualization of services, and provide wider space for the application of service computing. Services will be developed for the requirement of open interconnection and lightweight. Services in different fields will be co-evolved according to the needs of applications, while a transparent environment will be constructed for heterogeneous services. Thank you, Professor Jing, and we're so, we wish you could be with us really live on stage, but really great insights on how you think the future is heading, especially with the impact on COVID-19. So the next question I have is, to Professor Francis and also Professor G, if you can share, and also where do you see the pandemic impacting the future of services computing? And also the role that women are playing. And maybe also we should try to look at some of the questions that we have from the audience.
I guess I agree totally with the Professor Fan that this COVID-19 really brought out the importance of interconnectivity and also the technology as an infrastructure. It really affects everything: how we learn, how we socialize, how we work. It's going to be such a seismic shift, and also normalize some of the workplace model. Like before COVID-19, remote working in some cases is considered non-traditional, that you actually have to get approval from, for example, human resources department to do. Now, was at IBM, we actually have been practicing that for many, many years. But for many companies, I know this actually was considered a luxury. And this actually historically have been a big problem for people, for example, for people with disabilities, where, especially their mobility challenge to go from point A to point B through transportation or things like that. So I think the COVID-19 really brought out the possibility of using technology to limit or to eliminate the barrier of workplace access. So I think it's really opened up potentially work opportunities for broader and more inclusive populations. And that is, to me, one of the biggest biggest benefit. But at the same time, I think it yielded a lot of innovation opportunities. Like I actually been been talking to some startups. So, for example, if you look at the platform that we're using today, hosting conferences or virtual sessions, how can we make it more accessible? Can we, for example, like Zoom right now can embed instant transcription, speech to text? Can we have avatars, doing sign language interpretation concurrently? Can we allow, audio description of what's going on for somebody who cannot either have, due to technical difficulties, cannot dial in or cannot see the screen? So I think there are infinite opportunities that using technology like AI and using, image processing or recognition, and that combined with our real time and life experience to enhance the human both productivity and experience. So I think it's a very exciting time, actually brought out by COVID-19.
Thank you, Francis. I think we can only just predict that services will only just grow, especially online services and then the use of AI. And all of you have shared that pretty clearly. I would like to take some questions from the audience. We have a question that I think that mostly addresses Francis. The question is, what are the most difficult problem? What was the most difficult problem when you changed your career path and started a new one? What was the most important soft, hard skills to overcome when you did that?
I think one of the biggest challenges is myself, right? I mean, having the confidence to say, I can do it, and then be able to, and really not let that lack of confidence, kind of take over your fear, so to speak. I think for women, a lot of times we feel we are like, we need to be like 200% prepared before we will jump on something that's new, because we always want to ensure that we are not being not as prepared. I think one of the biggest challenge is yourself, but at the same time, I think, again, I will go back that I always felt like, because women, like just we talked about how Huda can handle so many things concurrently. To me, that is such a strength, and the differentiated strength that one has, especially as you move up the ladder. You're going to be challenged to handle a lot more situations and make quick decisions. And I think being a mother, especially if you have, family with multiple children, is the best training for you to be able to make instant and quick decision and be able to prioritize things and be able to drive to closure and to be able to, and also, measure the outcome, because we all know that if you do the right thing, either with their family or with your relationship, then you will reap the reward that you sow. So I think women in general should have a lot more confidence in switching track. And the earlier you do it, the better it is, because it is a skill set you need to be learned. So I will encourage young women to really go out and try your best to switch track and gain as much exposure in different area as you can, as early as you can.
Thank you so much, Francis. I think we're at the top of the hour, and I would like to thank our wonderful panelists for sharing their views, experiences, and wonderful insights around, the topic that we covered: diversity and inclusion, resiliency in the face of COVID-19, the future of services computing, and also women in leadership. Thank you so much. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Huda. Thank you, Professor G and Professor Jink. And wish you and everyone in the audience all the best. And I would like to hand it over to Lorraine. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So that brings to a close our first session for today, our first several sessions for today. So we had a really nice introductory session We had an excellent talk from Gargi with the questions, and now this really excellent panel. I'd like to thank the panelists, especially because they're, from all over the world as well. I think the panel could have gone on and on. We certainly had enough material. So I just want to remind you all that we'll have a second session on Wednesday. That'll only be 2 hours. It'll be a talk by Wei Lu, who I introduced earlier as the winner of the IEEE Women in Services Computing Award this year. And then the 4 lightning talks. So that'll be on Wednesday, so I hope you can all make it back. So thank you very much.